Indiana basketball and head coach Mike Woodson already putting in work for 2026.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. It is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you making Locked On Hoosiers your first listen each and every day. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Thank you so much for making this your first listen each and every day. Thank you so much for being here, the everydayer. Shout out to you. You're the reason that this is possible. Be sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video. It shares it, gets us out there, helps us grow as a podcast. And if you're on any of your audio platforms, we are free and available for you there as well. Indiana and head coach Mike Woodson, we know what they've done in 2024. We know they're putting in work in 2025, but they've already offered one of the top players in 2026. His name is Kayden Allen, and he is a really, really good guard as Indiana has offered him a scholarship. We're going to talk about him today, what that means, and why it's important for Indiana to continue working ahead in basketball recruiting, even in the middle of the season like we're in right now. We also have some bracketology updates for you for college basketball. Look at where Indiana could fit in that bracketology, and also some football notes as we get closer to the spring. Again, Indiana offers guard Kayden Allen in 2026. He is the 14th ranked player in the class of 2026, and he plays at a very familiar school that we know very well. And when it comes to Indiana recruiting, it's Montverde Academy, right? This kid is really, really good. And you start watching some of his film. I mean, he's just aggressive with the basketball in his hands. He carves up defenses, gets to the bucket, crashes the glass sometimes too. Like, he just kind of does it all right? And when he played in the Nike EYBL tournament in the Peach Jam event for Georgia, here's what his stat line was. Are you ready for this? 24 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists per game in that short game span. And as a sophomore, he only played 5 games. And so he has several offers. All right, these are from Hoosiers Now, the Sports Illustrated site. Well, maybe the Sports Illustrated site for Indiana. It is offers from Arizona State, Auburn, Cincinnati, Georgia, Georgia State, Georgia Tech, Ole Miss, Radford, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Central Florida, Virginia Tech, and Washington. And while that may not be just the most over-the-top impressive offer list you've ever seen, it's still early, right? We're in the first month of 2024, still trying to wrap up the 2024 recruiting class. Then you're trying to get into the 2025 recruiting class. This kid's in the 2026 recruiting class. So other schools are going to jump on him, I promise you. And I think there's a really good chance here that by the time it's all said and done, that Kayden Allen is higher than the top 14. Now, he's 14th right now. I think he's even higher than that. I think he'll be a top 10 player when it's all said and done. I mean, you just look at this guy. He gets into the lane and creates his own shot. And sure, there's a big difference in high school ball, even the travel ball, AAU, whatever you want to call it nowadays. There's still a difference between that and high-level Big Ten college basketball. Sure, right? But this guy can do it all. And he's somebody that I think Indiana can bring in if he ultimately does choose the Hoosiers. And they can bring him in, and he's got that unique skill set, right? He's going to be a freshman phenom type of player, but he has a lot of room to grow. And here's the thing, too. He's going to get better between now and when he gets to college. He still has a couple of years, right? The guy, he's still in high school, right? He still has room to grow physically, mentally, and emotionally, maturity-wise, all of that. He still has the time to do that. But even when he gets here or wherever he decides to go, you have a chance to grow with him and mold him and really make him into a superstar type of player. Good thing is, again, he goes to Montverde Academy, which is somewhere Indiana has lived recently. We had an episode yesterday talking about Liam McNeely becoming a McDonald's All-American, the Indiana signee. Also, Derek Queen, a guy that Indiana's going after, becoming a McDonald's All-American as well. And so if you're able to start pulling some of these guys, wouldn't it be nice if Indiana could just put basically an underground path from Bloomington down to Florida and just say, look, if you go here, you may as well just come here, right? Don't go anywhere else. Just get on the bus, get on the plane, and head straight to Bloomington. There's nowhere else you'd rather be, and there's nowhere else you need to be. Wouldn't that be nice? And it seems like that's what Indiana's trying to do, right? It started with Jalen Hood-Schifino, who did amazing things here, went in the NBA and is doing good things there. And now you've got Liam McNeely coming through. And you also have Malik Renew that came from there. Like, you're getting really, really good players from this school. And if you can just put it on lockdown, man, you're going to have great talent for years and years to come. Now, other schools are going to compete with you, sure, because of how great these players are. But if you can almost put your footprint there and it almost become a standard, a known thing, it's like, man, if you go there, man, they're an Indiana lock. Mike Woodson and the Hoosiers got that place on lockdown, right? Nobody goes in there and steals players from Indiana. Wouldn't that be nice? And I think that's a possibility here, reaching out and offering a guy like Kayden Allen in 2026. So you continue to look at this guy. He's playing all over the country. He's playing down there in Georgia, Florida. He's playing in a lot of tournaments there. And nobody for 2025 or 2026 yet. But I think that Kayden Allen can be that guy. And whether he ends up coming to Indiana or not, who knows? I would like to see him come on a visit or two and try to get that in rotation as well. But the most important thing for me is that we're looking ahead already, because we know how recruiting goes in college basketball. You've got to stay ahead of the curve here. And it seems like Mike Woodson and the Hoosiers are trying to do that. With the scholarship offer for Kayden Allen, top 15 player in the country in the class of 2026, and the Hoosiers just trying to keep a direct line between Montverde Academy and Indiana basketball. We'll see if that continues. We'll keep you updated on this. We got a little while on this guy, but huge offer in Indiana. I think the Hoosiers and Auburn, I'd say, are the two biggest programs on his offer list so far. We'll see how that grows over time as well. Coming up here on Locked On Hoosiers, we'll look at the latest bracketology. Indiana's not in it, but where could they go? Other Big Ten teams on it, plus other teams that Indiana will be playing, opportunities to get tournament wins. Those quad one wins we've been talking about. The Hoosiers got to start getting some. We'll take a look at all of that in the latest bracketology coming up in just a second on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. I appreciate you making this your first listen each and every day. Shout out to the everydayers. You're the reason we're here. Subscribe to the channel, like the video on YouTube. It grows, helps us grow. You become a part of our wonderful community as we're pushing for 1,700 subscribers. I would love to get there before the end of January. We got a few days to do that, so please become a part of that. I would appreciate it. Let's look at the latest bracketology from Joe Lunardi on ESPN, because we're getting closer. We're less than 2 months away now from Selection Sunday, which is so wild to me. Basketball season, we get so much anticipation, right, for it to get here. We're so excited. Then non-conference play gets here. We're like, all right, cool, get some big names. All right, now we're ready for conference play. And then, bam, conference play is just gone like that. And that's exactly what is happening right now in college basketball. But this bracketology was on the 23rd. So that would have been 2 days ago that this came out from Joe Lunardi and ESPN. And no, the Hoosiers are not in it. And we've talked about what has to happen for the Hoosiers to get into bracketology. But I think it's important to look at this on the teams that Indiana has played. We've done that a lot, but really the teams that are coming up, right? Who does Indiana play that is currently slated to make the big dance? Because those are those quad one opportunities that Indiana has and is going to have to win if they want to make it into the NCAA tournament. So the one we don't want to hear about is the top overall seed, which is Purdue, which we're not happy about. You start looking at the bubble, though. Interesting teams here. Northwestern is a last four bye, a team that Indiana is going to see coming up very, very soon. Some other big names, none of these that Indiana is going to see, but Kansas State, Ole Miss, Cincinnati, Oregon, last four in. Gonzaga, that's a huge name on the first four out. Not great things happening out there in Gonzaga. Providence, Colorado, Wake Forest on the bubble. Indiana State, Nevada, Florida, and Texas all on the next four out. Again, you start looking at teams that Indiana's going to see. Purdue, seen them once, got to play them again. They're the number one overall seed, according to Joe Lunardi right now. Teams that you've played already. Auburn, that team is really hot right now, playing really well. They're a 3 seed. I talked about Northwestern. They're a 10 seed right now in the tournament, which means they're on that bubble, which we just mentioned. That's a game that Indiana and Northwestern are going to be fighting for down the stretch. That's a game that ultimately could end up being a play-in game if you're not careful, right? Those could be the games that, when it's all said and done, if you win or lose, are the ones that make or break your tournament chances. And good thing is, you play Northwestern, even better, you get them at home. You play Northwestern at home on February 18th. And so that's an opportunity for a bubble team and a team on the outside looking in to play each other for what could be one of those many, many, many play-in games that Indiana has to get. You look at other teams Indiana's going to play. The Illinois team that you're playing this weekend, they're a 3 seed now in March Madness in the bracketology. That's really, really good, and I expect them to hang right around there in the top 3 or 4 seeds of the NCAA tournament. How big of a win would that be for Indiana to take down Illinois, get a much-needed quad 1 win, and that's a top 10 Illinois team, so even bigger with that. Michigan State is a 7 seed, the team you play at the very end of the season. I saw somebody in the YouTube comments ask, could that end up being an ultimate win and you're in situation at the end of the regular season? Very well could, right? And I think that's how all of these games are going to go, especially for teams that are hanging around in the tournament, on the bubble, or on the outside looking in, right? And there's a ton of teams from the Big Ten that are like that right now. And so for Michigan State as a 7 seed, you feel pretty good that they're in. But what happens if they kind of go up and down the stretch, and then Indiana gets them to play at the end of the year, right? And you get that game, if you're Indiana, at home here in Bloomington. Like that's a big opportunity at the end of the year. Kind of keep that in the fresh minds of the tournament committee. That's the last thing they see outside the Big Ten tournament. You have a really good chance, right? So Michigan State as a 7 seed right now. And you have other teams. The Big Ten in total has 6. So they've dropped pretty significantly. I think they had 9 teams at one point in bracketology. They've been pretty consistent with 8 so far this season. Nebraska is in for a decent amount right now. They're as a 9 seed. Of course, Indiana lost their first game against Nebraska. They've got a chance to rebound on the 21st of February, that game here in Bloomington as well. So put that on the calendar, put that on the tally mark of how many chances Indiana has to get big wins. And this is another one. Wisconsin, a team that you just dropped an egg against, a team that you had a chance to beat. No Khalil Ware. It hurt you for sure, and you didn't get that win. Wisconsin's a 2 seed now, folks. A 2 seed in the NCAA tournament here in late January. And you get them at home later on this season. Some of your biggest opportunities are at home. Wisconsin, Northwestern, Michigan State that we just talked about. All of these teams, you're going to get in the best place to play in college basketball, you've got to take advantage here. And if Indiana wants to make the tournament, you got to beat good teams. We talked about that the other day. You have chances. That's the good thing about playing in a Big Ten conference. That's the good thing about playing in the SEC or in the Big East, right? You have chances night in and night out to beat good teams. And even when you look at Indiana's schedule, you start comparing that to bracketology, right? Iowa is a solid team. Ohio State, solid team. Maryland, solid team. So while they may not be slated to make the field of 68, doesn't mean that they're not quality games and quality wins if you get those. But most importantly, man, you do get Iowa at home. You do get Northwestern and Nebraska and Wisconsin and Michigan State all at home. You have to take care of business. You have to do that if you want to be in any of the bracketologies, and most importantly, if you want to be in the daggum tournament when it comes to March. And Indiana's way out right now. I mean, not even on the bubble, not on the radar anywhere. But you have your opportunities. And 1 or 2 wins, depending on who they are, I think could get you in. A win over Illinois this weekend probably doesn't put you in yet. A win over Purdue? Yeah, absolutely. But if you stack up wins against Northwestern and Nebraska and one of Wisconsin or Michigan State, when I look at this schedule, Indiana should win all their home games. I'm just being honest. Iowa, Penn State, Northwestern, Nebraska, Wisconsin, and Michigan State. If this team is serious, if they're serious about making the tournament, they have to win their home games. Win them all. I'm serious. Win all your home games. If you want to become a tournament team and you want to prove that you belong in that field, win the rest of your home games. I think if you do that, Indiana will be in just fine. If you can pull an upset on the road somewhere, you're in better shape there too. We'll see what happens as Indiana looking to make it into the NCAA tournament. Latest bracketology has them way out. Good thing is they've got opportunities to get those big wins. Well, coming up here on the final segment of Locked On Hoosiers, we will talk about some football notes as we get closer to spring practice. That's crazy too, I know, but we'll talk about some notes, position battles, other things surrounding Curt Cignetti and this new looking Indiana football program. That's coming up here on Locked On Hoosiers. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. I appreciate you making this your first listen each and every day. Want to remind you that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Final segment here on Locked On Hoosiers. And as we get closer to spring practice, we've gotten some dates. We've gotten some updates. We talked the other day about how new head coach Curt Cignetti looking to get out the weaknesses, right? Get out the laziness, if you will, of this Indiana football program and really just revitalize this program and turn it into something new. And look, workouts are underway, right? Spring practice is coming up in just a little bit, but workouts have started. You've got a bunch of new faces on campus, new coaches, new players, recruits, transfer portal, you name it. And it's nice to see Indiana too getting out on the recruiting trail. I mean, they've offered some 2025 kids right now that they're going after, running backs, and going into the state of Ohio too to do that, which I think is super, super important. We know how talented the state next door is. But really, they've talked about how they just want to figure this thing out and kind of just change the narrative around here. And I think that's really important for a new staff to do. And it's really tough to do, right? But you start looking ahead for spring practice and you start asking yourself, okay, what can we expect? What should we keep our eye on when it comes to spring practice? And you know, the one that I go to offensively is the running back room. I mean, you've got some serious age in there. You've got some experience. That's a better word for that. It's some experience in there, right? With Kayden Black, who is a senior, Tyson Lawton, who is a 6th year, right? I mean, can't beat a 6-year guy on the football team. Justice Ellison's a senior, Elijah Green's a senior, and Trent Howland is a junior. Like, what more could you ask for when you have 5 or 6 guys that have played multiple years of college football combined here, other places. It doesn't matter, right? If you have that much experience, good things are going to happen. And it's guys like that, in my opinion, that help a program transition. They understand what it's like. There's obviously some competitiveness in there. There's going to be some battles in there, but I think that's probably the biggest threat to other teams for this Hoosiers team offensively right now is that running back room. It's stacked, man. It's really, really stacked, and I think the potential is extremely high. Now, you're going to have to worry about divvying up the plays and the snaps and the time, but that's what spring practice is for. That's what fall practice is for. All right, let's figure out who wants it. Who's going to be it? Who's going to be in that rotation for this Indiana running backs room? You have a couple of transfers from James Madison. That's Kayden Black and Tyson Lawton, who are going to be here, who were very, very good at James Madison under head coach Curt Cignetti. And you're going to be familiar with the new offensive scheme, with the new offensive coordinator. So they understand what to do, what to expect from their coaches. And maybe more importantly, or just as importantly, the coaches know what to expect from them. And just think about the stress that takes off of a new coach, a new coaching staff, when you can bring in some of your players and you're like, all right, I know that I can rely on this guy. I can rely on Kayden Black. I can rely on Lawton to come in, work, execute my game plan, and we're going to try and take it to the next level and bring everybody else up to speed, right? I think that's what you're going to see with this running back room. Black was able to rush for 637 yards and a touchdown last year, and Lawton was able to get 560 yards and 5 touchdowns. So almost like a running back by committee type of thing there. And you bring in the Wake Forest transfer with Ellison and other guys. And so, look, you're not going to have any problem with the running backs. I think that's going to be the go-to for Indiana offensively. I think that should be what they do. That should be the bread and butter to start the year. And as you get your quarterbacks more comfortable, there's going to be a little bit of a battle, but I think we know who the starter is going to be. But you have those running backs to trust and lean on to get the season going, to get a game going. And that, I can't stress how important that is on the offensive side of the ball. Got to figure out some receiver stuff. Got to work on the offensive line a little bit. I'm excited about the secondary and the linebackers room on this Indiana team as well. I really think the linebackers have a chance to be extremely good with Aiden Fisher, the junior, and Jaden McDonald, 7th year. That's become very popular, and I'm not judging by any means. That has become very popular. I mean, we got somebody in college football playing like his 8th or 9th season or something like that. I saw that the other day. Unbelievable. But almost a complete change from what we saw a year ago playing in the middle of the field for Indiana at linebacker. You bring in Aiden Fisher from James Madison, one of the double-digit transfers from over there when Cignetti came along. And you also have a transfer from Troy down in Alabama. Jaden McDonald are coming in, and those two guys are probably going to be it. I mean, those are your guys that are experienced. Same thing I was talking about with the running backs. You bring in guys that are experienced, know how to play, and for people that say, well, they played at James Madison and Troy, can they keep up with the speed in the Big Ten? I think so. I absolutely think so, because I think James Madison was playing high-level football. If you go look at Troy, they were playing high-level football as well, and their coaching staff just got poached too. So I think that is a concern, and we've talked about that when it comes to a lot of these transfers coming in, whether it be JMU, whether it be wherever the heck they came from. But that's on the coaching staff, if you ask me. You have to be able to elevate your players to this level and say, look, this is not James Madison anymore. This is not Troy. This is not whoever. This is not North Texas. I don't care where you came from. This is Big Ten, big boy football. And you have to play that way. And if you don't, you're not going to survive. I'm not worried about Fisher and McDonald here. I think you've got so much, you've got so much familiarity with coaching staffs and coaching styles and game calling and game planning that all of that should be a seamless transition. And I think that could be a major anchor of the defense. And I say anchor in a good way, as in they could be the focal point of the defense where they stop the run, get to the quarterback, put some pressure on. We'd love to see Indiana do that some more this season. And be the leaders of that defense. And I say that all the time. Linebackers should be the leaders. You should be the vocal ones, the communicators, the ones that others look to for defensive changes, defensive calls and schemes and leadership. I've always said that. And that needs to happen with McDonald and Fisher. Being 7th year and junior, absolutely, that should be the expectation. So I'm most excited for running backs on offense, linebackers on defense, lots of other positions we got to get to over the next few weeks as we get closer to spring practice. We'll talk about updates from that. We'll give our predictions, our thoughts. We'll make some lists. We're going to have a lot of fun here on Locked On Hoosiers as we get closer to the football season. Once basketball fades out, we're not wishing it away by any means, but we're going to have a lot of football talk here on the show as well. So I hope you're ready for that, and we're going to have a lot of fun here on the show. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. I appreciate you making this your first listen each and every day. A shout out to all of you for being here. We're growing. We really are, folks. We're growing. Keep coming back. Keep tuning in on YouTube, on the audio, wherever you get us. We're free wherever you want to take it in. So be sure you do that. Turn on notifications. And until next time, Hoosier fans, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.